Now here Paul George touches base on Indiana being a very cheap franchise, and he actually exposed the fact that he was trying to get Anthony Davis to come on board the team, and Anthony Davis was down with it. But then when he brought it up to the Indiana Pacers, they're sort of in this rabbit hole of just trying to stay competitive as a franchise, but not really trying to do too much to hit the luxury tax or actually build a team that could be successful in competing for a championship.
I ain't really, vibe with a lot of the front office people after they made the change.
Right.
And Larry kind of stepped off and stepped away from the team.
And Larry Bird stepped away from the team because he had made statements about them being very stingy on spending money on players. And it kind of put him in a rut because he was the team president and there was a lot of moves he just couldn't make to get the team over a certain hump.
Different management took over. And at that point, I understood, like,
the business
part
the
of
business
it.
side of it. I
And
remember
I had to leave.
you guys had some sort of a falling out on your exit, right? I remember you said something you would say one day what happened, and I think you might have spoke on it, but I didn't hear what happened. Like, what happened? What was the falling out?
Well, it was so, and I took a lot of heat for it, but it is what it is. So we do it's a softball game that we do in Indy. It's for, to raise awareness for cancer in Indiana. And so we do this every year, and a lot of people, like Roy used to be the face of it. He got traded away. So then I took it over with Robert Mathis.
Football player.
Yeah, so we took it over, and I joined, part with him to kind of keep that game and that tradition going. So we did that. I got interviewed, and they like, PG, do you want to stay here? Like, what's your plans? And at that point, that's where, like, I grew up a Kobe fan. Kobe stayed in LA. That's all I knew. I want to stay with the organization that drafted me and see what happens there. Like, I want to. Indy didn't have a championship they still don't, but I wanted to be the first one to bring that to them.
Now, in my belief, by the time they asked him right here if he wanted to stay, they were already considered shopping him around. Because as you can always see, Indiana, when it comes times to extend their top rookies, things start to get funny in the light. And I believe right here is where they already started to consider shopping around Paul George to try to avoid paying him a certain salary because they didn't really believe that they can win.
So I go through the whole press after the event, say I want to stay here, like, this is home, this is where I want to win one at. Then that night, and before we get to that point, a lot of stuff happened. I had, that season, I'm backtracking, but that season, before we got to that summer, that season, my name came up in trade talks. So I had, the front office meet me in New Orleans. It was All-Star Weekend in New Orleans. I had the front office meet me in New Orleans, chop it up with them. Like, my agent come down, like, what is these trade talks? Like, am I y'all guy or am I not? Like, let me know. So they like, nah, we not moving you, we not touching you. Like, you our future, like, you're our centerpiece. Like, so they telling me all the good stuff. Literally right before trade deadline, my agent get calls again, like, yo, PG's on, like, they saying PG's on the markets. Teams like,
Once again, Indiana, man, they was already shopping him around because there wasn't that much difference in paying Paul George, giving him a max salary contract versus not giving him one. Because the only difference could be them being a 5th seed versus them being a 7th or 8th seed. They believe that they could have been just as competitive because that's pretty much their business model, which you'll see Paul George basically expose in a few minutes.
asking about them, and they're having conversations. So that was like strike 2, strike 3. You know what I mean? All the other stuff was them moving other pieces around me that was like my brothers.
Right.
And they just moving them. I'm waking up, getting messages like, hey, this person's traded, this person.
That's how he was in Golden State.
And I don't have no, like, it's cool. I ain't in the front office.
AKA D West, he went to Golden State. He already knew what it was with Indiana.
That ain't my job, that's their job. But let me know, please. Like, so that was like strike 1s and 2s. And now when I hear my name in trade talks, that's strike 3. Now I'm like, man.
Especially after you tell me we good.
Right. We just had a lunch about this. So fast forward, to the moment where we do this game. I get interviewed, still saying I want to be here. This is my home. That night, and mind you, I think I said we had a top 3 player in the league at this time, power forward, that I was trying to get to come to Indy. He wanted to come. I bring it to the front office. They ain't do. They deaded it.
Did you ever say who that was?
It was AD.
Okay.
AD. Me and AD talked. And AD wanted to come to Indy, close to Chicago. He was like, man, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Y'all got something going over there.
So imagine that.
So right. So I bring that to the front office. They deaded it. We can't do it. Small market. La 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 la. I'm like, man.
Now you got to ask yourself, why would they dead that? A lot of teams would pray and wish on that. I mean, they had Paul George in his prime, and AD was definitely a monster player, still very, very young. Why would they dead that right away? Because like a lot of these NBA franchises, particularly in the smaller markets, they sell the fans on this idea of winning a championship, but most of these owners are using their teams as just pretty much as a cash flow. They just want to stay semi-competitive, and they give you the illusion that they're trying to win games, but they're just not trying to be at the bottom tier of just teams in the league. At least if they stay around the middle pack, maybe get eliminated first or second round, that's considered pretty much a successful season to a lot of these owners.
All right. So then that night, go back to after we did the baseball, the charity game. That night, they called me up like, you know, we got this player and we looking at that player, and these 2 players is we not winning with these 2 guys that they named. So I called my agent like, man, what am I doing here? They don't want to win. Like and what I think, honestly, I don't want to bash the organization because it was wonderful people there, but in my opinion, I think it's an organization that just care to be competitive. They don't care to win. They got pressure from the city of Indiana to be competitive, and that's where they hang their hat on.
Paul George exposing. He's not saying something that's his opinion. He's saying something that he's been told from other people around the league. And there's a number of teams that play that same game, and they try to sell their fan base on the idea of winning when they're not really about that. Miami's pretty much one of those franchises, believe it or not, the Miami Heat. But thank goodness for them that they got Pat Riley, and he's very slick and very clever in the way he moves and manages the monies and contracts, and the way he scout out players. They're lucky and very fortunate. But when was the last time Miami Heat ever went over the salary cap and spent money to win? So a lot of these franchises, they're not about that life.
They just want to be a team that can compete. And their chance of winning is they're going to have to do it in the draft, building the team. That's going to take forever. So I call
Now it's going to take forever. Most likely it's not going to happen. When was the last time an NBA franchise drafted a whole team and end up going all the way to the championship? The 2004 Detroit Pistons, even they went out of their way to get at least a star or 2, a semi-star in Rasheed Wallace. But when was the last time a team drafted their whole team and went on to win an NBA championship? It's very rare.
like, man, get me out of here. Like, they don't want to win. I'm wasting time here. I came off of surgery. Larry trying to get me to play the 4 coming back. Like, it was just a bunch of stuff.
Now that right there is a red flag. The fact that Paul George had that crazy injury after the Olympics and Larry Bird was trying to get him to play the 4, in my opinion, I'm thinking that they're trying to devalue Paul George's contract extension year to try to make him look like he's less valuable. He's not the same guy. Why would you make a guy come off a leg injury like that and play the 4 position, in which he's already considered a small guy for that position? Unless you're not trying to pay him and give him the San Antonio haircut on that next contract extension. See, a lot of these teams, they have very, very slick ways of trying to avoid to paying guys. And Larry Bird is not his fault. He only has enough basically leverage as much as the owner gives him. So if the owner's not going to be willing to spend a certain amount of money, he only has that little wiggle room to make something happen.
I threw the towel in, and man, I just asked to get out of there. And that's how that all that kind of transpired.